Hello and welcome to another episode of midierror Meets, the monthly music podcast where we talk to a wide range of people from the music world. This month I'm speaking to Ade Fenton, who is a composer, musician, a DJ and producer based in the southwest of England. Ade's had a phenomenal career as a techno DJ. He's toured the world and played on some of the biggest lineups you can possibly imagine on the scene. More recently, he's worked with Gary Numan on his latest 4 albums and was the producer of his latest album, Savage, which was released to critical acclaim. So I caught up with Ade earlier on this year to talk about his career and how it's formed and what's in store for him. So let's check it out. Ade Fenton, hello.
Hello there.
It's really good to meet you.
You too.
Thank you very much for letting me come to your studio in Bath.
My pleasure.
It's one of my favourite cities in the UK, Bath. I absolutely love this place.
I'm glad you say Bath and not Bath, because that's good.
Yeah,
that's how it should be said.
Exactly. I've sort of been trained to say Bath because I live on the south coast.
Yeah.
And people always take the piss out of me saying
likewise,
Bath. Yeah.
Likewise.
Do they say Bath here?
I'm the only person that says Bath.
Good.
Because there's no R in it, you see, so it's Bath.
I know, yeah. You know what, there are so many rules in the English language that state that it should really be Bath rather than Bath.
Right, I shall look into that.
But yeah, it's a lovely city, I really like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool, so my first question that I ask in my interviews is, what were your earliest memories of music?
As a sort of music purchaser or a music fan or whatever, it was... And it's probably going to sound corny because everyone knows sort of what I've done later on in my career, but the first 7-inch single I bought was Our Friends Electric, and I had a massive kind of I was a big fan of Gary Numan's when I was a kid, and that lasted till now really. It was just something about, this has been said by many people, but it was just something about the sound of Our Friends Electric which opened up a whole world of me being into music. It just nothing else that I'd heard up until that point. It's like you might like certain songs or tracks or whatever, but nothing kind of made something happen inside that you can't really put your finger on. Mm-hmm. And hearing not only the synthesizer sound and electronic music, you can sort of look back on it now and think it was more than it was. But at the time, that record was so, even though there were Kraftwerk and Tangerine Dream and all the rest of it, that just brought it to the masses, and I just sort of, that made me look into people like John Foxx, that made me look into people like early Human League, and all of the people that were making music at the same time as Gary, but Gary was the first one for it to really kind of explode, and then because that then makes you explore other things, I knew right from the start that electronic music was the thing that I loved, as opposed to anything else. And dark electronic music as well. Yeah,
definitely. I think there is that element running through your back catalogue of darkness, which maybe we can talk about later. I think Gary Numan, he sort of, for me it's the use of like electronic synths with rock, with guitars. There's that fusion that is incredible.
But even if you look at an album like, for example, The Pleasure Principle, in '79, no guitars, it was just synthesizers, the odd cello or whatever, and acoustic drums, live bass, and that was it. No choruses in any of the songs. Incredible. When you actually think about that now, it's mental. Because that was, it sold millions and millions of copies, continues to sell millions and millions of copies.
Definitely.
So ahead of its time. But as I say, people like John Foxx as well. When I bought Replicas and then The Pleasure Principle, and then I bought Metamatic, John Foxx's Metamassic album. Again, really, really dark, stark, cold. It's very similar to The Pleasure Principle in a way. It was just incredible. It's just like this light goes on inside your head, and you want to find more electronic music. I was going out trying to find stuff by SPK and all, people, anyone that was using synthesizers, in a cool way, what I thought was a cool way, cold way. That was really what kind of floated my boat, even at an early age, because I'd be 12 then, So and that just developed and developed.
And you'd started a record collection then?
Well, I don't know about that, but I'd certainly, I'd probably be saving my pocket money, or I've gone and done like a Saturday morning at my dad's place or something like that to get some money, and then I'd go out and buy vinyl on the Saturday, and 9 times out of 10 it was somewhat weird. Cabaret Voltaire or something,
like left field sort of stuff from. Why do you think that appeals to you?
I don't know. Similar, I know you'll probably come onto this a bit later, but electronic music for me, kind of around about 82, started to go a little bit twee and a little bit lightweight, and I kind of started to lose interest in it a little bit. Not lose interest in it, but find it more and more difficult to find stuff that I really liked. And I think when I discovered techno, there was that missing link between, when I remember the first time I heard Energy Flash by Joey Beltram at a club. And it was like, oh my God, what is that noise? That's like a noise that Cabaret Voltaire were making, 10 years ago or whatever, and it was that was like another. That was my second wake up to music,
I think techno always had those experimental sounds in, didn't it?
Definitely, certainly that early. They call it. It was kind of referred to as Belgian techno in the very late 80s, early 90s. Acid house had passed me by slightly, but as I say, when hearing those early R&S records, just again, that was the start of everything. That was the start of my career, really. It just came a lot later,
It's brilliant that you mentioned R&S, because that was one of the record labels I wanted to ask you about, if you were into that sort of stuff, because hugely. What a seminal record label that was.
Incredible. I mean, I've got the memories and professional and pleasure, memories of all those great records on that label, and many more, but that was the one that did it for me. It was hearing Beltram's Mentasm and Beltram's Energy Flash. They were the two. The drugs probably helped, but it was that absolutely. I wouldn't be sitting in the studio with you now if I hadn't have heard Energy Flash. That's how important it was. I would be sitting. I wouldn't. Our Friends Electric was just as important, but it didn't make me go into a career in music. Energy Flash is the reason I got into. Is the reason I became.
That's
a producer.
Incredible, isn't it? Essentially, just one item, one piece of vinyl that was.
And I hope if Joey ever listens to this, he knows. He probably does know, because I've told him a billion times. But that's how important that record was to me. That's incredible.
That must be also. I mean, imagine also how that record has spanned across the globe and inspired like so many people. I guess the stage you're at now, you are in this, like, in essence doing what he's doing and planting the seed with a lot of people who go, wow, this record is incredible.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you never ever think that about yourself, do you?
Probably not.
I definitely don't. But I hope so. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So then, there's quite an interesting story I read in an interview where you said about going to Ibiza, you lost your job.
Yeah, that's right. So, this was well after, hearing Energy Flash and kind of experimenting with different forms of dance music. I was in a boring job So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, get wasted. Even on a Thursday night, I'd go into work on a Friday, still off my face, and do it again Friday and Saturday. It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
I mean, there's a certain determination in that lifestyle.
Absolutely, yeah. And so kind of experimenting with different types of dance music, and so I got into a bit of a pickle at the job that I was at, and they let me go, and so I had about 7 or 8 grand in redundancy money, which back then was
pretty good.
Yeah. And I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to go. Let's go to Ibiza. Let's all go to Ibiza. And so took everyone to Ibiza and came up with nothing, absolutely nothing. Just everything went either up my nose or whatever, and it was. But again, that was another, as well as the, the drug side of it. It was, again, it was a kind of moment where I'd sort of, gone to some of the shitty house clubs, thought, this is bullshit, and then went to Pasha, which is, I don't know what it's like now, but I went to Pasha, and Laurent Garnier was playing. It's well before I got into music as a job, and he was playing, and he was playing techno. It's like, again, not quite as profound as the Energy Flash moment, which was in a warehouse in Leicester, I think, a few years earlier. But so I came back with nothing, as I say. I came back with nothing, and I met this girl who just happened to have a couple of turntables, and I was so skint that she would sort of buy me a few fags every day, and everything was, I was really in the shit and thinking, what the hell am I going to do? She had a couple of turntables, and I just started messing around, and I just found it really easy to beat match pretty much instantly. And I just thought, I like this, it's good. So I can't even remember how I managed to get by money wise, but
yeah, because buying records was another thing. I remember we used to save our lunch money throughout like college. Like not spend £2.50 or £3 every day for like weeks and weeks, and then go to Birmingham and just spend like £60 on records.
I've no idea how I got by, but anyway, I did, and then that kind of became something that I wanted to do, because I was buying all these records, the techno records, and just thinking, I'm going to give it a go, and so that's what I did. I gave it a go, and I was just dead lucky that. When I put my first record out in '98, I was just dead lucky that it happened to sell well, and it happened to sort of strike a chord with some people. And
how did that happen? Were you sending off demos to them?
No, I got together with a guy called Tony Thomas, who sort of showed me the ropes in terms of production and sequencing. And then I can't remember. There was a distributor called Integrale back in Birmingham, and they might have not been called that then, but Ben Sims was with them, and obviously people like Surgeon and Regis were sort of doing stuff with them, and I think I just sent it off, and then they got in touch and said, this is cool, we could put it on. So we just decided to do it on. Set up, me and a guy called Paul Smith set up Advanced as a label, and that as I say, it just took off. And somebody told me, I think it was either Umek or Ben Long or Jamie Bismarck or something, just said, if you want to be working as a DJ, all you need to do is put your phone number on the label and say, for DJ bookings, call this number. So I thought, I'd try that.
That's good advice.
And I did it, and the phone just started ringing all the time, and people would just phone me up and just say, Umek would phone me up and just say, "Oh, you fancy playing Slovenia and Croatia this weekend?" Yeah, all right. And it just built and built and built.
That's incredible. What a great piece of advice! It's such a logical thing to say, like, just a phone number, because it's sort of something enigmatic about a phone number rather than, I don't know, a website or an email address.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, me and Paul had started putting parties on as well. We set up a night called Fusion, and that was based in Nottingham. And we were dead lucky that we got a grant from the local council, because it was sort of part of the Arts Council grant, because the lottery had just started. And so we booked Carl Craig, and you know, we and Ninja Tune as well in the drum and bass room. So we just kind of like, and it just worked, you know. Mm-hmm. So again, we were dead lucky. That gave us the money to go and book people like Dave Clark and everything, you know. And then Dave started playing my records, and do you know what I mean? It just built. You built nicely. Momentum, it just built, yeah.
Cool. So I mean, you played a lot of sort of seminal nights. You recently tweeted a thing about Global Gathering and the lineup that you played with, which was Umek and Surgeon and Ben Sims, and I've written down the list of the rest. Was it?
Me and Surgeon at that Global Gathering, I was a little bit worse for wear and sort of commandeered one of the golf buggies that I used to get. No one gave me permission. I went and picked Tony up from his tent or wherever he was, and commandeered this golf buggy and sort of got chased around by the security guard. Absolutely wasted. I was.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah,
Derek May was there.
Yeah,
Speedy J. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're all like seminal names in the techno scene, aren't they?
They are. Yeah.
I mean, Umek as well. To me, I think I probably came in a bit later to techno, but I remember an Umek set from around 2003 that just 2 seconds in, it just gets you going straight away. There's something that was so like bouncy, his stuff, wasn't it? And, like,
yeah, I mean, you know, when you actually sort of, you know, someone like Umek, who, you know, he is a superstar in Slovenia, you know, and there were, you know, him and a guy called Valentino Canzioni, sort of back in the sort of early 90s and late 90s when, you know, we were all doing so well out of it. You know, and Umek's still going now, you know, and you know, Umek is, you know, even though some of the music that he makes now is not necessarily for me, but, you know, he was a massive part of that early sort of part of my DJ career. You know, he was making tracks that, killer tracks, you know, Lanicore is one of his tracks that is just ridiculous, you know.
Yeah, they were always like,
if ever you lose the dance, we'll just play Lanicore.
You always need those go-to
yeah,
records.
Exactly. Lanicore, easy.
I think in my DJ career, I just never had those go-to records, so I just emptied the dance floor,
and
that was it for the rest of the evening.
And Luke Slater's remix of Beltram's Forklift, they were the two records you just like, that's easy. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and of course Surgeon's still going, Surgeon's still making music.
You know, that guy, you know, that guy's a genius. You know, I love Surgeon, he's brilliant, you know, I really, I've got so much respect for him. The fact that he's maintained his career in the techno and his standing as well in the techno scene, but also he's experimented with different forms of music like ambient stuff, industrial stuff, you know, and done really well, but still managed to he's just kept everything going. You know, he's fantastic. That, you know, and he's funny as well. You know, he's a funny guy. Yeah, I really like him. I don't see him very often, but. Yeah, quite a lot of time for him.
Yeah, he's gone into the modular world, hasn't he? Like when he plays now, it's fully modular.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
which is his new album itself.
Yeah, his new album. I heard a few tracks from his new album, and it's all modular stuff. Yeah,
brilliant. Well, that leads me quite nicely onto the scene in Birmingham and House of God, which he used to play at. Did you ever play House of God?
I didn't ever play it because I was resident at Atomic Jam.
Ah, okay.
There was a bit of friendly rivalry between the two, and so I would never get booked for House of God because I was resident at Atomic Jam. But I went to House of God as a punter, even after I'd become known, you know, on the DJ front. I still, if I had a weekend off, I just wanted to go to a techno club.
Yeah,
you know, and get wasted and just dance. You know. That's it.
There was a pretty good scene in Birmingham, wasn't there? I mean, you mentioned Atomic Jam, and I thought it would be impossible to come here and not talk about the Q Club with you, which was just the best venue I've ever been to in my life.
Best nights of my life have been at the Q Club. You know, I mean, so many, not just as resident DJ, But as a, you know, even before that, you know, I was going clubbing to Atomic Jam, you know, long before I was resident DJ there, and it just the best amazing nights at that incredible venue. Just fantastic.
Yeah. Just so for people who don't know what the Q Club is, it was old Methodist church, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With like
the organ and
a huge main room.
Yeah.
A huge main room, and then lots of labyrinths and corridors and stairwells all the way around the building, where there was people lying on the floor, there was people partying, there was 3 or 4 other different rooms that you just happen across walking around.
Incredible.
Absolutely awesome. I had some great nights in there. Brilliant club. Some of my best memories were in the Q Club. In actual fact, one of my friends lost his wallet in the Q Club, and I swore down to him that I would find it, and I fucking found his wallet in the Q Club. I'm not joking. In the main room, I was stood up looking around in the main room about sort of 10 or 15 minutes after saying I was definitely going to find it, because he'd really like started getting worried about it. And I looked down, there was like a flash on the floor in front of me, and I just sort of walked down towards it and picked it up. I was like, holy shit, I've actually fucking found his wallet.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, you know, I have two massive memories from the Q Club. The one is playing with DJ Rush and Dave. I think I was in between Dave and Rush, and
nice.
it was you know, it was just one of those nights. You know, it's just incredible. Played a really good set, and it was just great. And the other memory of it is probably a different night, but Princess Diana was killed on the night of an Atomic Jam.
Right.
So you can imagine, you know, being the worse for wear and everything, and you know, being on something, and then somebody came in and told me, just said, I remember the words. It was just like, what I'm about to say to you, you know, he's going to blow you fucking up. Princess Diana's been killed in a car crash. And it was really, I really remember it really well, just because of the fact that, you know, the sort of situation that it was, and it was just weird.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, let's also just mention Dave Clark as well, because Dave Clark is an absolute legend, and the times I saw him play at the Q Club as well, I don't think I've seen anyone so into their set when they're playing it. You know, what a guy.
He's as well as Jeff Mills, he is he as a DJ, in terms of style and the way I liked to play, he was the benchmark. You know, above everyone else, in my opinion, technically, and we just a sort of kinship in terms of the sort of music we like to play, that real jacking style, you know. And he still, I mean, we work together now, you know, and he's you know, he's still at the top of the game. 20 years later.
I mean, the World Service discs he did were like seminal for me and my group of friends.
Well, again, you know, when he released World Service, you know, he asked me to support him on the Australia and Asia part of the world tour that he did for World Service. So I was his like support DJ, and you know, he chose me because we'd played together at Atomic Jam and stuff, and that opened up a whole new thing for me as well in Australia and you know, Singapore, Malaysia, and that really made me realise, crikey, you know, I found it, even though I was pretty well established in Europe and Brazil, you know, I still found it incredible that, you know, quite a lot of people had come out to see me play, you know, even in Australia and, you know, Singapore, you know, just brilliant.
That's brilliant, and I guess once you're established there, you can keep going back, and then word spreads around.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah, I did want to ask you about where DJing's taken you. You mentioned Brazil there. You also mentioned Colombia in an interview.
Yeah, very nice. I really love the play. I mean, the Brazil tour was fantastic. Not only did I really hit it off with the promoter there, we became really, really good friends. We still are really good friends. You know, I played in, I played Rio with Godfather, DJ Godfather. You know, I played a couple of times in Sao Paulo. Played in Belém, which is right on the edge of the Amazon basin. going, flying back from there. I just remember, flying back there in a 737 that was actually fucking leaking. Water coming in. It was like, fucking hell. Yeah. And having a real terror, real fear of spiders as well, and sort of playing in the Amazon basin at this party, that was weird.
Like ridiculously humid.
But even played at Interlagos, where the Formula One's held, and
is that the Formula One track in Brazil?
Yeah,
right. That's amazing you mentioned that, because me and my friends were racking our brains to remember where the Brazilian Formula One track was.
So Interlagos, I think, means big lake, and there was this party there, and it's just fantastic. That was brilliant. Colombia was great. Colombia was fun. Really enjoy South America, but it's just taken me everywhere. I've been so lucky, really. South Africa, Australia, as I said, Malaysia, and it's just been, it was great for a long time. It was really, really good, and sort of set me up, not just financially, but sort of set me up for, I guess, where I am now, because I don't know whether I would have been able to maintain it the way Dave's maintained it, for example, or whether I would have been able to maintain the interest even. That's a big thing, that I made a techno record last year, and just because I wanted to, and it was kind of like going back to a kind of formula, whereas with the film stuff that I'm doing now and the TV stuff, or working with Gary, it's far more experimental, and I guess you're not just trying to get people on the dance floor. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and I suppose the thing with techno is it's sort of like a loop and a groove. That's like detailed, whereas with cinematic stuff, it's more of a progression from one thing to another.
Absolutely.
Cool. So you mentioned early on I read that you used Cool Edit Pro to put your tracks together.
Yeah, that was I mentioned Tony Thomas earlier. So Tony was a whiz on Cool Edit Pro, and so that's how I started. The first few releases that I did were all done on Cool Edit Pro, and it was just chucking samples in, mashing them up, editing, and that was it. That was how I did the first lot, until I'd sort of could afford a better computer and maybe some instruments and stuff, and kind of learnt more and more and more, really.
And so where did you progress then from Cool Edit Pro? What sort of
straight to
gear
Logic?
Did you pick up?
Straight to Logic. Bypassed Cubase altogether. Can't even remember why I got into Logic or how I got into Logic, but and I'm still a Logic user now.
Wow, that's good. That's a good. It's a testament to Logic that you
I guess
stay
so,
with it.
Yeah, it's been close a few times with frustrations, but it's now I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it is good. I've always found it's brilliant for like automation and finessing automation and details.
But I guess because I've got into the film stuff, the fact that I'm sure Pro Tools or whatever is just as good, but or perhaps better. But it's very the synchronization for doing film stuff is spot on. So it's really important, as well as the fact that I just know it inside out now, having used it for so long.
Yeah. You don't even need the screen on.
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool. We're sat in your studio now. You've got a really good selection of outboard stuff.
More on the way.
Is there more on the way?
There is more on the way, yeah. From Arturia, bless him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because I did. Would that be the Matrix Brute by any chance?
It's actually the Mini Brute 2S that's coming, the one with the sequencer.
Nice.
And Brian, who works for Arturia, he basically wants me to sort of get into the 2S because I love step sequencers, and he's gonna. He knows that my Matrix Brute is something that I want.
Yeah, because I did read that you were like that was going to be one of your next things.
Yeah,
and now they're making great stuff.
They are, and they're really user friendly as well. And customer, the customer service is great. I mean, again, I am in a lucky position that, people sometimes give me things, which is really nice, but sometimes it's a case of, you get given a few things and you kind of just forget about it because it's either not that brilliant or whatever. But with companies like Arturia and Analog Solutions, who've been really kind to me, you really want to go public and say really nice things about them because they're not just nice people. The customer service is great, and if you've got an issue, same with Native Instruments as well, on the software side, fab, Whereas if I had a problem with Logic, I'm not sure it'd be that easy to get hold of the right person at Apple, I don't know.
yeah. Well, I know people who use Ableton that like pulling their hair out just trying to make keyboard shortcuts, and it's very difficult to give feedback. So yeah, what you mentioned Analog Solutions. You have a lovely sort of suitcase synth here called the Vostok.
So semi-modular through oscillators with the pin matrix, which allows all kind of modulation possibilities without the use of cables. It's a little bit like Battlefields, you just sort of stick the pin in.
Yeah. So
again, the whole thing is just encourages experimentation, and I find that I use soft synths a lot, but I enjoy the noodling side. I enjoy the experimental side, and just maybe setting Logic up to record for an hour's worth of stuff, and I'll just play on that and see what happens. Same with everything I've got really, and just then I really enjoy that side of it, and then go back to it and just go, this 58 minutes of that is absolute shit. That 2 minutes is amazing.
I would certainly
never have been able to do that on a soft synth.
Yeah, man. And I think what's great about this, it sort of has that science laboratory look about it, doesn't it?
It really
doesn't
does.
Look like a...
No, it really does. And again, I've probably only just scratched the surface with it, really. But it is great. Yeah.
Like to the untrained eye, that could be something that intercepts military radar.
Absolutely. Yeah, it probably does. There's probably planes above us now thinking, "What the hell is going on here?"
Yeah, you're like recalibrating their airspeed.
Yeah, but again, it's got 8-step sequencer on it. Again, which you can modulate enormously with various stuff. So it's really great that I can sort of have 8, 16, however many steps firing off in Logic in one key, and then just setting that up so that it's just all coming up with all sorts of weird stuff. And as I say, I enjoy that sound design kind of side to it. Sound design is giving me a much more glamorous kind of appraisal than actually what it is, which is just experimenting, hoping for the best, and then being really lucky. That's pretty much my career summed up, really.
Yeah. It's good that you say that, because I think a lot of things get like terms that are attached to them. Like, for example, curating a night. Now, when you put a night on, the night's curated by someone. Whereas that was not really a thing, was it? No. Like 10 or 15 years ago, it was just someone put the night on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's sort of ABC of getting the DJs together, but now it's sound design. Maybe it's sort of it sounds quite exclusive. Maybe it's putting a lot of people off just pissing about with synthesizers.
Quite possibly. I mean, but I think you have to enjoy that side of it and not get too downhearted if you spend an hour recording stuff and nothing happens. It's just the way it is. As I say, I love step sequencers. I've got the Erzberg Pro there, which is analog 64-step analog sequencer, and I love that thing. That was the first analog sequencer that I bought, and I have that firing the virus or the Blofeld or the analog keys or whatever, and it's just fab, and it just allows you to just experiment without getting really pissed off. It really does, and that I really like that side of it. I just I did a film score last year for a horror film called Nails, and that just the having the Erzberg driving the virus and just recording loads of weird stuff, that kind of was the whole background for the whole film, for all of the music, and just recording having drones with barely anything going off, running through the step sequencer with loads of reverb, and just hearing what it was doing, even what the step sequencer was doing to the reverb tail, it was brilliant, really interesting. So it just created this really eerie world, but that's fun, that's really good fun.
Yeah, I think for me the outboard is is the fun bit. I think if I'm sitting in front of a computer and just using soft synth, you don't get those sort of happy accidents, and I don't know, it's less the less tactile it is, like an iPad sort of synth, the less fun I get out of it. I'm definitely in a similar mindset.
Yeah, I think I think being in the film and TV world now, I guess the only issue is that everyone wants everything yesterday. Music's always the last thing that the producers or directors think about. Not always, but most of the time. And they always need it in 2 weeks' time. Please deliver 30 tracks for us in 2 weeks and all that kind of stuff. So, you kind of think, well, have I got time to sit there and experiment,
Yeah.
But try to do it as much as I can, just because I enjoy it, really,
Definitely. And the Blofeld's a great synth. I love all the stuff.
Yeah, Blofeld's a good synth. I bought that a while ago. Again, it's really good for the film stuff. We've used it a lot on TV, film and TV stuff. The analog keys, I've used a bit on Savage, but haven't really experimented with it massively just yet. Kind of, to me, first impressions are it's kind of geared towards dance music, but I could be completely wrong there.
Yeah, I think if you use it with Overbridge, it becomes a bit more accessible. Yeah. To be sure.
That's where I have an issue, in that my Mac is one of the processors that they don't support.
Ah, right.
Which is fucking annoying.
Yeah, I can understand that being annoying. Yeah. Because menu diving is like, you've sort of got to learn a new language for each piece of gear, haven't you? And if it's prohibitive, then it does just actually become there.
Yeah, the Blofeld's menu system is really easy. The Virus one is really easy. The Virus is great. It's just glitchy, especially in TI mode. But
you've mentioned the Virus quite a lot, haven't you? How long have you been using the Access Virus?
Well, the first one I had was the Access Virus B, and that was however long ago. I can't remember when I released my solo album. I think it was like 2007 or something like that, and that was my Virus B. And I think I'd been working with Gary a couple of years before that. I think I produced Jagged in 2005 or 2006, and the Virus B was on that, and then we just carried on replacing them with newer models. And when I started playing with Gary in the band, the Virus was the first synth that I'd kind of used that could really replicate brilliantly, and it actually adds something to the old sounds that Gary was using.
Yeah, I heard you mention that when you were touring. There was a Sonic State interview where you're talking about it, and you say this is the synth we're using for Gary's synth sound.
Absolutely.
So that must have been a cool moment to find something that not only plays the sound but adds to it and is a modern version of it.
It really is, yeah. It really is. I mean, obviously the sort of the Gary Numan sound is the high string sound. The Cars high string sound, which obviously everybody knows was Polymoog Vox Humana preset. But Gary didn't want to sort of take a Polymoog on tour, and kind of didn't want it to sound like a 1979 sound. He wanted to sound like a modern version of it. And I think once you've sort of fiddled with the Virus for a couple of minutes, the Numan string sound we use is I've used it on all 4 albums I've done for Gary so far, and it just works.
Yeah,
love it. I do really love the Virus. It's a brilliant synth. I just wish it wasn't so fucking glitchy. That's the only thing that really annoys me.
Right? How does it? It's one. That's one synth that I have never used and I don't know anything about. So how does it glitch? What does it?
It's just that if you use it in, if you don't use it in TI mode, it's absolutely fine. If you use it in TI mode via USB into Logic, as soon as you have more than 5 or 6 plugins open in Logic, it starts to pop and crack.
Oh, I see. Right.
None of my other synths do that. I like the fact that a lot of the key things are on the front.
Mm-hmm.
that's why the Matrix Brute sort of kind of appealed to me, because there's no menu system; it's all there.
Yes.
And I like that about synths.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I've never understood is why synth manufacturers, take the Blowfield for example. I mean, why have this whole black panel here on the right hand side with nothing on it? Mm-hmm. Why not just extend that and use that bit? It doesn't make any sense.
I can tell you that, but it's probably quite boring, just cost reduction, isn't it?
Yes, it probably is.
But yeah, I'm exactly with you on that one. I love synths where it's all there in front of you, which is why I've spent a lot of time programming Max MSP patches for things like the DX7.
Yeah.
So instead of having to do all the menu button pressing to program the DX7, you've essentially just got a synth with 200 knobs in front of you, and you can actually change them. Yeah. So I've spent probably as much time making music as I have programming things like that to get away from these blank spaces that live on synths.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've just noticed at the bottom there you've got a Zoom Studio 201.
Yeah, that was the very, very first effects unit I bought.
No way.
And it was
such a classic.
And it was recommended to me for real gritty, sort of dirty reverb sounds. And so when I first started making techno, that was the first thing that I bought.
Brilliant. It does loads, doesn't it? It does pitch shifting, reverb, delay. I think there's a vocoder, like a really rudimentary vocoder on it.
It's all really rudimentary, the whole thing. But I never use it now, to be honest.
Cool. It's always good to keep
I've just sold, as I said, I'm just doing all the thing. I've sold loads of gear, and I'm now, even though I've still got more than enough, it's kind of whatever I buy now is something I know that I'm going to use.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a mix engineer. I don't need loads of outboard compression, because the mix engineer I use is a genius and he's far better at it than I am. So why would I spend £2,000 on a compressor when I can spend £2,000 on something else?
Yeah, definitely.
It's brilliant. Why? And so, like I said, the Mini Brute 2S that's coming, I will use it every day, and that's the thing, really. So
they are awesome. The Arturia are really stepping up their game. I think.
Yeah, the boiler that Dave Clark sold me that.
Really?
Yeah, and that is very rare compressor. That's the only compressor that I kept. Used by all sorts of different people. Brilliant drum compressor.
Nice.
And
I've never seen it. Yeah, it's a very.
And this Eventide Eclipse, that was very expensive, but I've had that many, many years, and it's the best reverb unit on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I've used it on every film score, every TV show that I've done, every Gary Numan album, everything I've ever done. It's got that all over it.
I did have that. My second question in the studio is going to be about the reverbs, because the reverb on I was listening to Savage, and the reverb's fantastic. I really wanted. Was it from?
There's two things. Two things. One is the Eclipse, which is incredible. It's so beautiful and pristine, which you expect from Eventide. And obviously, when you sort of pay $3,000 or whatever it is for one UFX unit, you expect it to be good,
Yeah, you hope so.
Yeah, but and also Nathan, who mixes Savage, he's a lot of Bricasti reverb, and so when we went to mix Savage, Nate would run either the vocals or whatever through some of the outboard, mainly Bricasti reverb that he uses, and that's kind of what happened.
They sound great.
It sounded really good. Yeah, lovely.
Cool. So I sort of really admire your approach, because I do know people who've got studios that are rammed full of gear, gathering dust or not using it. So it's quite, you obviously have a very strong focus on what you want.
Yeah.
And everything having a function.
I did have a mixing desk, but again, I'll never use it. What is the point? You know what I mean? So I just thought I'm going to get rid of it, and I bought the Presonus fader port, and I use an iPad for and just have that going with Logic Remote.
Nice.
And I've got a new desk coming, so all of the stuff that's in my rack is going to be in front of me.
Oh, brilliant!
And this rack's going to go, and then that side is going to be for the 2S and the Matrix Brute eventually.
Excellent.
That's it. For now.
We've obviously got a lot of self-discipline I've just got boxes and boxes of shit under my bed.
Yeah.
I just also wanted to recommend, I don't know if you've ever played with the Vermona Performer. It's a great synth. Such a great synth. Vermona make really, really nice synths.
I know it well, you know. But
the Performer's really incredible.
Okay.
Honestly, if you can ever just have a go on one, do
get in
it.
touch with them.
Get in touch with them,
Yeah.
because it's the one synth that I've played with in the last sort of 5 or 10 years that I was like, I just have to buy one of these. And anyone who I know who does film scores or soundtracks, I just say, just try the Vermona Performer. It's sick. It's got so many
I will.
Yeah, cool, man. That's great. Yes, Andy. There's a guy who works for a company called Antec. Down in the south coast, who I gave an Korg MS-22 of mine, which I'd knackered, and he said that he knew you quite well.
He does, yeah. But when I was in Gary's band and managing Gary for a while, Andy was he's our saviour. You know, we've had a couple of viruses go wrong. You fixed those. Some of Gary's old gear, the Mini Moog, one of the original Mini Moogs that Gary had. It was a completely. It was complete grass growing out of it and all sorts, and Andy properly fixed it. Good guy, Andy.
Yeah, really nice guy, sort of low key guy, but he's so, I admire his skills so much.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, if you admire him, then he must be a geek.
Yeah, definitely.
In a good way, you know, you're a geek in a brilliant way. I'm a geek, you know. Great.
Definitely. I did once, just talking about knackered equipment, I did once try and fix an electronic organ when I was in India.
Right.
And it turned out there's a frog inside the organ.
Maybe that's what was wrong with the virus.
I just couldn't believe it. Yeah, so let's go into talking about Gary Numan and you working with him.
Yeah.
So you've worked with him on 4 albums now.
Yeah.
Which must be... Did that start off as a surreal experience for you?
It's absolutely. I mean, it's 6 if you include the film score that we did from Inside, and also he guested on my album in 2007. I mean, yeah, of course, you know. I said before on interviews that the very first day that Gary sent me the vocal stems to a track called Scanner that was on Jagged. It was just, you know, I remember saying in the studio, fucking hell, I'm actually working on this track. You know, it was amazing. Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, if you're a 12-year-old lad and you've got posters of Gary Numan on your wall, and then however many years later you're producing one of his albums, I mean, you can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it must be phenomenal.
Great. Yeah, it is, and it's still, you know, massively rewarding. We've got ourselves into a position where we really trust each other musically, and he knows that if I change something, it's because I think it's for the best. It's taken a while for us to get to that stage, but he'll always give me the opportunity to cast my own ear over it, or maybe hear something slightly differently. And I mean, working with him it just feels right. It just feels natural. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine that feeling with one other person, and that would be Trent Reznor. But but
who you have toured with, haven't you?
I don't know about toured with. You know,
okay.
I guess we did a few shows.
Okay.
And again, that was a ridiculous experience. Even more ridiculous was when Gary sang at the O2 and sang metal on stage at the O2 with, you know, it's like Gary, you know, one of my best mates up there on stage singing metal with 9 Inch Nails. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a moment.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, working with Gary is a stupendous kind of experience. Again, you know, that whole thing about you take certain turnings in your life, don't you? You know, and stepping away from the techno thing, even though I miss it massively. I miss DJing like you wouldn't believe, but taking that side step and then eventually working with Gary, you know, I mean, it's been, you know, massive sort of reason why I'm still managing to make a living out of it.
And it's obviously also a testament to your production skills.
Well, they've got better. They just continue to get better, don't they? You know, I mean, for everyone, not just for me, but you know, I think the more. It's like the old saying, isn't it? The more the practice, the better you get, and it's the same with production, you know, and also learning from other people, and always being willing to learn from other people. You know, I'm 50 now, and I'm still learning all the time about from people like Nathan, who's younger than me, who's way cleverer than I am. You know, certainly on the mix front, anyway, and just learning. In fact, I've stopped learning from Nathan because I just go, do you know what? Just fucking mix it. And I don't want to know. Magic. I don't want to know what your threshold and ratios are on that compressor. I just want you to make what I give you sound better. And he does every time. But then when you have, you know, I work with a guy called Tim Slade now, who, you know, amazing musician. You know, and he'll come here. He's got his double bass. He brings his cello. You know, he brings his bass. He brings his guitar, and he'll just. You know what I mean? I'm useless, you know, I couldn't, you know, but
everyone's got skills in different areas.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, you just get better the more and more you do something. I do think you get better as long as you're willing to always be open to learning and accepting that many other people are better than you at certain things. So you can try and get better at something, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's important for people to like ask questions, you know.
Absolutely.
Like some people are too apprehensive, or maybe they want to appear like they know everything. Yeah. So
because I was like that, you know. I was like that completely, but I'm not like that now at all, you know. And I think that's allowed me to learn. And just become better at what I do. You know, I think if you listen to, you know, the albums I've done with Gary, you know, they've just gotten the sound quality has just gotten better and better and better and better, and that's down to just learning, really, you know, and everything. You just become better at what you do.
Definitely, and I guess refining the process of making it. Yeah. So you've worked on 4 sort of musical albums with him.
Yeah.
Let me just get to the right page. Hold on a minute. Yes, you've done 4 albums, and in Savage you are the producer of that album.
Yeah.
That must be such an amazing thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, this one came about slightly differently in that. When we did Splinter, for example, you know, Splinter took 18 months. With Savage, me and Gary had a little break from one another, and you know, we both just working on different things, and so when we got back together, I think we were both slightly apprehensive about whether it was going to, you know, the old magic was still going to be there. And from day one, it was, you know, instantly, and we managed start to finish in less than 6 months, which for us is just ridiculous. You know, we would never. None of the other albums were like that. And it was just a focused drive, you know, that we both had. You know, and of course when we found out that it had got to number 2 in the charts, we found out a few hours before the public found out, and you know, we'd had a call from. The record label, and the record label had told Gary that, you know, we've been keeping an eye on the midweek chart position, and then you get updates from the record company, and I think there was a couple of days to go, and I think Gary had said, you know, I don't want to know now, you know, because we were just expecting it to slip down. We both said if it goes top 10, we'd be really happy, because Splinter had gotten to number 20. So that was top 20. Fucking brilliant.
Which was his first top 20 hit for 20 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And then of course on the Friday when we had this news, BMG, the label, it just said get yourselves down to the office, and you know, it's just a one of the best moments of my life, really. You know, and just sort of me and Gary walking into this room, every single employee from BMG, fucking big company, clapping us as we go in, and you know, My Name Is Rome video is on the big video screen. Everybody's clapping, champagne.
Incredible.
What can you say? You know what I mean?
Brilliant.
And then, you know, 3 or 4 hours later, I come home and I'm wiping shit out my baby son's nappy. Do you know what I mean? That's the reality of life, isn't it?
Yeah. That's amazing. And what's funny, you talk about the process in Savage of putting it together, and sort of Gary emailing you at 6 a.m. on the day that mastering's meant to be finished with some changes.
Yeah, well, we were booked in with Matt Colton, the mastering engineer, at 9 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, Gary's emailing me, and then I phoned him. We were in the same hotel, obviously, and we need these changes making. You know, he was just saying, what, you know, I've just listened to the version 4 or whatever, and now I'm listening to version 10, and I miss some of the things that are in version. What the fuck, you know what I mean? So we're both panicking. Nathan Body is having a nervous breakdown because I'm on the phone to him at 6:30 in the morning saying, mate, we've got to get into the studio. And we were still giving Matt new versions even whilst he was mastering the first tracks. You know, we're still having these little revisions done, but that's what it's like.
Brilliant.
Just the way it is.
That's finessing it and getting it right.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's really good. So the way you worked together was quite interesting on Savage. The way that you were working, 'cause sort of quite a modern sort of.
I guess so.
Process.
I mean, it is. Although it's just become that way. We both prefer our own space in the studio. We both prefer to be comfortable in experimentation, be comfortable in getting something wrong. Sometimes, if you're in the studio with someone, it's you know, sometimes you're a little bit restricted if you're working with someone in the studio because you don't want to make yourself look a twat. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter with Gary now because we take the piss out of each other relentlessly, so it wouldn't matter. But we just prefer that space of sort of working remotely, and obviously the fact that he lives in Los Angeles now makes it impossible unless I'm going to move into his house for 6 months. You know, it's kind of like makes it impossible, but it's just the way that we work, and it just works really well. And technology now has allowed us to, you know, Dropbox and FaceTime have allowed us to even exchange projects in real time. You know.
Yeah, it's a very powerful thing, isn't it? And I guess listening to it in your own space, you get a very good sense of perspective on it.
Absolutely.
So he sends you MIDI. He would send you MIDI files.
Yeah, he sends me. So he'll send me all of the audio files and all of the MIDI files for everything. Everything's labelled. He sends me a list of what's what. We'll have a little chat about where he wants it to go, where he wants the demo to go, and that's that. And then he just lets me get on with it. And then I'm never so arrogant to go, I'm going to rip this apart and then send it to him and hope he likes it. I'll always say, what do you think about, you know, maybe having these really... There's a track on the album called The End of Things, and you know, it was the demo that Gary sent, you know, it wasn't quite as tribal, and so I said, well, what about sort of having this really big, thunderous, cinematic toms on the chorus? And he just said, yeah, try it. And it just, again, it was just one of those things that kind of worked. And that's how we work, you know. It's how we work. There were only 2 tracks on the album. No, there wasn't. There was only 1 track on the album that we had to change. And we you know, I tried something, didn't work, we went back to the original idea. And that,
brilliant.
It's ridiculous, really, when you consider, you know, how much kind of work went into it, really.
Definitely. Well, it's a superb album. It's really fantastic, and you've fused that cinematic epic.
I think that's
epic side to it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously Gary's done a billion interviews about the subject matter and everything, but you know, to be quite honest, when we first worked on the first song, which was Bed of Thorns, Gary had that demo lying around for quite a while. I think he was kind of like toying with the idea of using a fresh producer, and it just, you know, for whatever reason, you know, that didn't happen. And then, as I say, you know, it just, I don't know. There's just a kind of like a spark, and you know, Bed of Thorns was, as I say, the first track I worked on, and you know, within a minute, it was, you know, kind of. I think he felt it. He felt it as well, you know, because I was so excited about it, and he was really chuffed and everything. And it just we had no intention at that point of it becoming an album about, you know, like a post-apocalyptic album, and we had no intention of it being purely electronic, which it was. No kind of acoustic drums on it, for example. Only electronic drums. It just happened. It just happened really quickly as well, and everything I was sending him, he just loved it, and all this, and that makes him excited, and he sends back even better songs, and then things happen like Persia singing on one of the tracks and all that kind of stuff, you know, and it just works.
I really like the story of, you were talking about like microphones with Gary, because he was using an SM58 with a sock on it.
That's right. Yeah, he lost his pop shield. Yeah, yeah.
I love that story. That I can really relate to that situation. I love that Gary Numan is also in that situation. You know?
Yeah. But we've sort of reverted into the Songtronic Saturn now, and everything sounds great.
Yeah. You, I think you have you. Am I right in thinking you've used these mics for quite a while?
I haven't. Yeah, I used them on Splinter as well. Yeah, yeah, they're really good.
Brilliant. What is it that you like about them?
Just the clarity, and you know, maybe it's because I'm used to receiving vocals with recording on an SM58 with a sock over it. And then when I got the Saturn, it was like, oh, yes, amazing moment of clarity. I don't know, but it's just great, and I use it for, you know, when we're me and Tim are recording strings. You know, it's just amazing. It sounds great all the time. I don't think I've ever done a recording with it where it sounds shit.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
that's incredible. I might look into that. I think that's one area of expertise I don't have, is microphones. So
yeah, likewise. And again, that was an intro from a guy called Andy Gray, who worked with the guys at Songtronics, and just recommended it and just said it's fucking amazing on vocals. Give it a try. Try it. That was it.
And you also recognise the speakers, the PMC. Is it 228?
These are 228s. They are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, they look pretty good.
I'll give you a blast in a bit.
Cool. Yeah, I think it is really important to get good monitors, isn't it? For anyone making music, you can compromise and get some £10 speakers off Gumtree, but you're not going to hear the details.
You know, the money I spent on those, which again, you know, because I have this thing where I always sort of think, if I'm going to spend a certain amount of money on something, what else could I buy? You know, and that's why I said about the compressor. So when I spent the money on that, again, PMC were lovely to me and very kind in terms of discount and stuff. But again, it was Nathan that kind of said, you know, it is going to change everything. Yeah. And you know, it is probably that and the acoustic treatment in the studio as well. You know, all the toys are lovely and everything, but get good monitors and get good acoustic treatment and get it right. As you'll hear in a minute, it just changes. You know, it changes the way just to be able to hear everything. Means that you can make albums like Savage and actually pay great attention to the finest little details because you can hear them.
Yes, yeah. And I suppose if you haven't acoustically treated the room, you may well get resonant frequencies or things that are colouring your hearing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, that's another contributing factor to Savage, you know, is and Splinter, really, is just you know, the equipment gets better, the technology gets better, and everything, you know, because you're not using £1 million studio or whatever, you know, you have to make sure that what you do is as close to it as it possibly can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the thing I've noticed over the years is like a decent set of monitors really sets you up.
Yeah,
you can. Yeah.
Well, I've had the PMCs now for about 4 years, and they are incredible.
Cool. Just going into a couple of the comments and things I wrote down while I was listening to Savage. I think one of the things that makes music cinematic or makes it sound good is like the stereo field. You've got a really good sort of grasp of the stereo field, you know, when in the production of the tracks. So yeah, like
I can't take all of the credit for that thing. You know, again, Nathan Boddy, he you know, his expertise in geekery and you know, explaining to me about different forms of mixing and stereo placement, and you know, even though I relentlessly take the piss out of him for it, you know, again, it's that thing about learning and listening and everything and experimenting. You know, placement and everything is really kind of important, but it's also having the willpower to actually sit down and methodically, and this is what I did it with Splinter as well, work out which sound is going to go where, and just go that extra mile into how stuff is going to be placed and what that particular, even if it's just a little bleep, what's it going to sound like in that side, and how's that going to affect what's going on that side? Is it going to really annoy the listener if there's something going on in, you know, and that to me, you know, that's kind of really important. Again, Splinter was the album where I really got into the whole kind of programming and sound design stuff for that, and placing stuff, and then it just expanded with Savage, I think.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's so immersive, and those details are like interesting for the mind, aren't they? You're not really. It creates more of an intent listen when you're listening to it. It's less of a passive thing. You almost feel part of it.
Exactly. I mean, you know, Splinter was a far more kind of aggressive album probably than Savage. Savage again just kind of became this spacious kind of cinematic album with, you know, hints of aggression, or, you know, certain songs would be aggressive, but for us, particularly for Gary, to allow space in some tracks, you know, tracks like And It All Began With You or Broken or whatever, just allowing that space, and that again is probably something Gary hasn't done and I haven't done at all, probably ever. You know, everything has to be fucking aggressive. You know, we want everything. We're going to perform this stuff on stage. We want to be fucking rocking out. Whereas with Savage, it was more of a, it was more appropriate to do that, and of course that allows you to have space in the spectrum. You know, that allows you to be a bit more brave with, or bold or whatever with which sounds go where, and we wanted it to be cinematic. You know, when it became the album of, you know, Gary's unused stories from his book and everything, and it became the sort of post-apocalyptic thing. It had to be cinematic. You know, you couldn't do like a sort of Aphex Twin album, you know, based on that, you know, in our opinion, you know, and it was still very important that it sounded like a Gary Numan album.
Definitely.
And I think that's why he, apart from the friendship and the professional respect and everything, I think the fact that because I was a fan for so long, he knows I have a fan's perspective on it as well. And so I know as a fan I would want a Gary Numan album to sound like a Gary Numan album without sounding pastiche. And I kind of know how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's quite an important part of it as well.
Definitely, and take it forward and breathe new life into it, as well as respecting what's been done. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think you've definitely done that. There's definitely
that's the intention.
Like, there's iconic tracks on this album. There's definitely, obviously, My Name Is Ruin is iconic, and it was sort of like the big single. Yeah, when the world comes apart as well, I've just written a classic sound because it is just like it's almost like you know it, but while it's playing, you know, you hear it for the first time and you know that song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's brilliant. Also, like the use of distortion is really good throughout the album, and in fact, it starts off with a distorted sound, doesn't it? There's embracing the
because obviously being a fan of aggressive industrial music, my sort of my thing many years ago was just to sort of turn everything up to 11 and just rah, but which I still love doing, of course, but just controlling it and everything, and again just comes back to that thing about learning, learning about Sound Toys Decapitator, and, what sounds best, and obviously the Sherman as well.
Yeah, we can't go without mentioning the Sherman filter bank which you have there. Was that used on the Savages?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Savage?
Yeah.
It's a beast, isn't it?
It is a beast, yeah.
It's got quite a lot of sort of inputs, hasn't it?
Yeah, tremendous amount of inputs, yeah. Yeah.
And even the name is sort of military-esque, like again it could be something that's...
The logo on the front kind of says it all. Protect your ears at all times. Always make sure the trim level is right down before you start doing anything, otherwise you damage your hearing.
Nice.
But again, it's just about controlling it, really, I think.
Reining it in.
Yeah.
Brilliant, yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome album. I mean, there's lots of layered instrumentation, which is really good. I like what God Intended is sort of quite mysterious, sort of spacey. It's almost like I don't know if I've totally misinterpreted it, but it's almost like it's post-apocalyptic, and at that point there's a journey away from the planet. That's sort of how I interpreted that.
The lyric side of it is 100% Gary. So I don't know, but
just sonically.
Again, I mean, even that was just putting some drum grooves together, and just kind of we wanted it to kind of stay on one level in terms of the groove all the way through, with different layers here and there, but pretty much stay on one level. But then all the instrumentation kind of starts to build and build and build and build, but that groove stays the same. So it wasn't intended ever to have like a chorus or whatever. It was just having that really heavily electronic feel to it. Again, there's a lot of distortion on that track, but it's very kind of crispy, hi-fi distortion.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe all right, maybe I don't know.
Probably
It's when you've listened to something a gazillion times, it kind of like you can lose focus on what it was really.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, like the horn sections are really good. They just add so much weight, don't they? But the other thing that's really important to say is that Gary's voice, he recently turned 60, didn't he?
Yeah.
His voice is as strong as ever. And the track And It All Began With You is, essentially just him singing a cappella for a good few minutes.
Pretty much.
His voice sounds incredible, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started working with Gary on Jagged, Gary's a certain frequency that Gary's got a problem with his hearing, and he mixed the first that album Jagged, and so because of the problem he was having with his hearing, it didn't sound as clear as it probably could have done, which we are going to go back to at some point and do a new version of it.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So Gary's tendency would be to bury his vocal within the music, whereas I said to him, because he was so unconfident about his vocals, but I said to him, and Gemma, his wife as well, just kind of like, but that's what the fans love about you. The fact, it doesn't matter that you're not, the best singer in the world or whatever. It's your voice. It's not about how you sing. It's your voice.
Yeah,
and it's another instrument, and it's the main instrument. And so I just kept creeping the vocal level up as much as I could, and now that's become the thing. Whereas and having Gary's voice sitting right on top of the mix, it's kind of really important. And again with Savage, it was massively important. And he's just become more and more confident with, he'll even sing in front of me now in the studio, which was unheard of before, because he's got a newfound confidence. I'm not saying that's because of me, it's not at all, but he knows now. He understands.
Yeah, I think we all need that sometimes in tracks, don't we? A friend or someone will listen to a track you've done and say, oh, then you need to turn that element up way more. Like everyone has...
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's always good to get someone else's opinion.
Yeah. I mean, we still have, we still have disagreements all the time. You go into, of course you are. So he'll say, I want more delay on that, and I'll go, no, because then it's just going to sound like, a stadium track. So we'll just be in the middle or whatever, or we'll just come up with a different solution. It just, but I'm glad that he's kind of listened and now it's just because so many people and so many reviewers of the records or whatever have said how great his voice sounds. Again, that's the confidence is kind of back, and obviously with an album like Savage received kind of so well and doing so well commercially, I think a big part of that is the fact that his voice is the main thing. He's the main feature.
Definitely.
The production and how clever I can try and make something sound is really not that important. What's important is the song and his vocals. That's got to sound great, and then we'll work on the rest after that. That's how I do it. We're just working on a new track for him now, and the first thing I do is the vocal. I do all the editing, and then get the vocal sounding right, and then I'll start building all the track.
Excellent. So it's like the roots of it, from the vocal
Absolutely.
and then outwards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a good way to work, really.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I spent yesterday just editing the vocals, and then just this morning I was just EQing and stuff, and just getting them to sound good, and then I'll start working on everything else.
Excellent. You mentioned you were working on a different version of Savage.
Well, we on Jagged.
On Jagged.
Oh, sorry, different version of Savage. Yeah, so we're doing a super deluxe version of Savage, which is going to be 3 new tracks, 3 new songs, including a new single, and that's also going to feature a DVD and other things, which I think is going to be out as soon as I finish the production. And I'm also mixing the live recording that they did from Brixton Academy as well.
Oh, superb.
So that's going to be part of the package.
Amazing.
Yep. So
it tempted with 5.1?
It's been suggested before, I'd be up for it, yeah. But it just comes down to time and the fact that we'd have to get another mix engineer to look at it in 5.1. I'm still not massively convinced about 5.1, apart from a few examples, but maybe it would work brilliantly with Savage, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. If it became the norm for everyone to have a 5.1 setup, music would, it would change everything. It's such an immersive experience. Yeah. But I just sort of was listening to the album and I was like, wow, fuck. It's not many times I think, 5.1 would be great, but for that one, definitely. Yeah. Oh yeah, you mentioned about always having a backup plan if you want to make a career out of music, and I think that's really good advice in general, because it is quite difficult to craft a career out of it, isn't it?
It is nowadays, yeah. The artist has fallen out of different avenues, revenue streams. Again, that was another kind of one of the reasons that I, as well as really enjoying it, sort of decided to pursue a career in film and television, because it's still reasonably well paid, and there's no age limit to it as well. take someone like John Williams, for example, as a composer, he's still going strong at 90 or whatever he is, and it's great. So whereas if you're sort of a 70-year-old record producer producing a 20-year-old band, I'm not quite sure that that's going to happen so much. But
maybe slightly out of touch.
But it is very, very difficult now that music is effectively available for free most of the time, and the artists make fuck all out of it. It's very, very hard, very hard. Whereas before, you could have a reasonably decent career doing something, even if you're not making a fortune. Now you can't even sell records, and unless you're Madonna or whatever, or Katy Perry or whatever, you're not going to have the luxury of being able to go and record an album or spend 25 grand recording an album with a producer or whatever.
Yeah,
what I mean?
Like Pink Floyd just having Abbey Road for 6 months. Or something.
That really bothers. Yeah, that really bothers me. That eventually, and it's all walks as well. It's not. It's the behind the scenes as well. It's like the corporates taking an extra 10% out of composers making music for television or whatever, on top of the 40% that they already take, and all that kind of stuff. Eventually you keep taking all of the money out of it, and you're not going to be anybody left, because no one could be able to afford. If you see your PRS statement going down all the time, where it should be going up because you're making more and more music, because everybody's the corporates are all taking their share of it. It's gonna end up with a real problem.
Yeah.
And so, yes, going back to your original question, having a backup plan is very important. I haven't got one, but if I was a newbie starting out now, then I would absolutely try and make sure that I had one.
Mm-hmm. And maybe also stick to your own path and your own interest. And
I think so, yeah.
Carve your own.
I think
thing.
so, yeah. I'm not trying to be John Williams. I know what I'm all right at, and I do. I know now that people come to me because they want, a certain sound, and that's what I'm good at. And so I'll stick to that. I'm still diversifying all the rest of it, but I decided, I'm not. I think the other thing is as well, because I've never had this massive desire to be an artist. I've always been quite happy, being the producer or being the composer whose name's just on the credits without being at the front. Of, that's cool. I'm all right with that, and that's good. So eventually there'll be a point where people will just go, I just can't afford to make music for a living anymore. And I have to have a proper job.
So yeah, have a backup plan is a good idea.
Yeah. As I say, unfortunately, I don't have one, so hopefully everything keeps on going okay.
Yeah, I don't think you need one to be honest. I think you've crafted and forged a very good career, and
cheers, mate.
Yeah, you've been stratospheric, working with Gary Numan for the 4th album.
Yeah, that's been alright. Yeah,
top 20 album.
Yeah,
you've done very well.
Top 2 album now, mate.
Oh, top 2. Sorry, yes, two top 20s. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for talking to me. It's been good to talk to you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, and all the best with the future projects.
Thanks very much.
Oh, it was so good to talk to Ade. He's quite an honest person, I thought. Didn't seem to have any sort of ego, which was amazing. Pointed out that it's really good to always be learning things, and that it's okay to get things wrong in order to get to where you want to be. Okay, next month we're talking to someone who's in management. He's been involved in putting together festivals in the UK and also setting up a nurturing scheme for cities in order to make a sustainable music industry. That's next month. I'm midierror. Thank you very much for listening. That was midierror Meets. I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.